Okay, this video is to show you how to oil your anti-reverse bearings using a BX2 500, but this will work for any of the BX2 reels. First thing you want to do is to take the frame off. You do this with taking off the 4 little side plate screws here with your Torx wrench. One on the other side. And the frame slides off, the spool is attached to the side plate. This is a reel that was sent back from a store, so get that out of the way. Okay, so the next step is with a little flat blade screwdriver. You pop the little cap here. Like that. And underneath that you'll find an E-clip. So the next step is to push the spool shaft on this side down on your table, which will make the E-clip rise out, give you a little better access. With the same flat blade screwdriver, some grease on here, but clear that grease off. You just put the straight blade screwdriver in the gap between the E-clip and the spool shaft, and kind of pry, give it a little twist, kind of pry backwards, which gives it, gets it out. Move it up and away from the hole. Just give it a little pop. That'll allow you to slide the spool out of the side plate. If it's a little tough, you might need something to give it a little hit there. There you go, there's your spool. So now we're into like 3 sub-assemblies. We've got the frame, the spool, and the side plate. We're going to be working with the side plate. Remove the gear cover, get that out of your way. Inside is really simple. Got your gear stack, bearing, not much to it. Next one is you want to take off this little cover here to get at the nut to hold the handle on. It's got 2 little Allen head screws here. And again, this is a return rail, so that's why that shifter, top of that shifter is broken. So you can see you have access to the nut. On here is, again, this piece is broken, otherwise the shifter piece here would normally be part of this. And you'll have the top little push button there. One thing to keep an eye on when you take this off is this little spring. Little spring which sits in this recessed area right here and provides the sideways pressure for this button. So when you push the plunger down, it pushes this guy over and locks that in place into low gear, and when you push this, it lets it go, pops it back up into high gear. Again, with this little piece here, which is on this tape sitting on top, this will be kind of in your way there, so you would just lift it up, then use your wrench. I'm going to get it out of my way, but you would just lift it up and then take the wrench and loosen the nut here. Sometimes it comes off by hand, sometimes you keep on going with the wrench here. Good idea, I'm just holding the inside with my finger here so it doesn't just drop out. Now, again, this is what would happen when you go to pull this off. You'd be holding it by the top here, and you'll pull the whole shifting assembly out. So you'll kind of have this going on. You'll have this, this is sort of attached to the tape here, but yours would look like that, all one unit, shifting unit. So now you can pull your handle off, metal spacer, plastic spacer, and then from there you can push this whole gear stack out. So now you have access to the anti-reverse bearing. It's a big bushing here, smaller one on top. Easiest access is probably from the top here. It's got the thinner spacer, and you can pop those out with a straight blade screwdriver if you want to get them out of your way. But you can see you have access to the bearing in there, all the needle bearings. So there's grease in this when they're new. You don't want too much grease on there. So the best thing I think is just to take some of the Real X oil that came with the reel, or if you have some other type of reel oil, and just go through there and stick that on the needle bearings and run that around in there. You could even do it on the top there, just between the dissimilar metals there. It'll help keep that nice. But the main thing is just getting it on the needles and get that area flushed out there. And you can even take a rag and clean out the old grease if you want, any gunk that might be in there, and then hit it with the oil. And hopefully that'll do the trick. You should we do that when we service the reel. Should probably be done at least once a year. If you're fishing a lot, the reel's seeing a lot of water, salt air, and whatnot, you might want to do that twice a year. But all depends on how much action it's seeing and how it's behaving. If it's smooth, then probably no worries. So once you oil that up, you can check the bearing here if you want to make sure it's moving nice. This is basically how you service a reel anyway. So again, you can clean out grease, put in fresh grease. Can we use the cow's grease? Not much to that. If you're continuing to service the frame, same thing. You could check that bearing, little grease, the spool. You could take these covers off via the 4 screws on both sides and take a peek at your drags if you wanted to. But in your case, you're just really looking at that problem with the anti-reverse bearing. So that's how you do that, and then you just reverse everything. So your main gear stack, make sure that washer stays on there. Back in, and actually before you even put everything back together, you could easily test it. You could run it like that. See it's moving smoothly. Don't want to forget our bushing. Plastic washer first. Might be a couple of them. It all depends on how much spacing needs to be done. Metal next. Handle. And I'm gonna get these little parts out of the way. You're shifting little sub-assembly of parts here, shifting nut sub-assembly. Now you go to tighten this back up. You'll notice that on this piece there's cutouts just to match up with the corners of this nut. So ideally you want to tighten this thing down, I think till either you get the flats going parallel. Let's see if that works. Or it might be the corners. Yeah, it's the corners. So I just have to play around with it a bit, but I should be able to snug this one and back up to the corners. You can see where these corners are pointed right up at, right to the holes here. Maybe I'll go a little bit farther. So the corners are pointing right at the holes, and that'll match up with this. So again, normally you have this going on like this. I point it down so when you're shifting on the fly, you can just drop your thumb off the knob, hit the button. So you would have that like that. Your little spring, which you could put back on this little tab. That. Your ring first. Goes on there. Over that. And then, again, here's a trick with this. You want to point your spring up. It's got to make contact with that. So you want to sort of put this over the top and get it at an angle so your spring is coming in contact with that spot. And then sort of lower the whole piece down onto the nut. And sort of kind of play around with it there until everything sits flush. And snug that back down. Once you get it all snug, again, this one's broken, but the other piece went. But you can test your shifting system, and you should be able to push that all the way down. It'll lock this guy in place and then pop it back. So test that first, and then place your spool, and pushing it down on the table. Get your E-clip. Want to make sure the reel's in free spool. So this thing's all the way down. That way that's sitting up. Get your E-clip, put it in the little slot there. Needle those pliers. Oops, I can get a little help with the screwdriver if you need it. Give it a little twist, and you hear it pop into place. Cap snaps back on. Don't forget your gear cover. It just fits in there like a little puzzle piece. Make sure it's flush down at the bottom here. Put your frame back on. And your gearbox is going to sit a little forward. You just line up all the screw holes there. This one right above the lever lines up with the bar there. There it goes. And you just get them started first. Then you can snug them all down. Man, once you get it all tightened up, then just go through, check everything. In your case, I think is mostly the anti-reverse spring. So in or out of gear, test both, but you just want to turn the handle, make sure that things moving nicely, both in gear and out of gear. Maybe run the drag up, low gear, high gear. Try it all and just go through the reel just like you were using it and make sure everything's moving nicely. But that is pretty much it. That's how you oil your anti-reverse springs.